Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Midnight Knowledge. Tonight, we're going to learn about explorers who disappeared in abandoned places. So, as you start to settle in, please feel free to subscribe and make sure to let us know where you're listening from. As we begin, take a moment for some deep breaths, letting your mind and body relax for a good night of sleep. Now, let's begin our dive into one of history's most captivating and chilling subjects: the stories of explorers who ventured into abandoned places and simply vanished. Now, before anyone gets too excited thinking this is going to be a ghost story session, let me assure you that while these tales might give you goosebumps, they're grounded in historical fact and scientific inquiry. The intersection of human curiosity and abandoned spaces has always been a fascinating one. Throughout history, explorers, archaeologists, urban explorers, and adventurers have been drawn to places that civilization has left behind. Whether it's ancient ruins, abandoned cities, derelict buildings, or forgotten tunnels, these spaces hold an almost magnetic appeal for the human psyche. Unfortunately, some of these brave souls who ventured into the unknown never returned to tell their tales. Tonight, we'll examine several cases of disappearances in abandoned places, analyze the factors that contribute to such incidents, and discuss the psychological and practical reasons why people are drawn to explore these potentially dangerous locations. We'll also look at the lessons we can learn from these disappearances and how modern technology and safety protocols have evolved to prevent similar tragedies. But first, let's establish what we mean by abandoned places. These are locations that have been deserted by their original inhabitants or users, often for extended periods. They can range from ancient archaeological sites to modern industrial facilities, from ghost towns to abandoned subway systems. The common thread is that they represent spaces where human activity once thrived but has since ceased, leaving behind empty structures that nature and time are slowly reclaiming. Before we delve into specific cases, it's crucial to understand why people are drawn to abandoned places in the first place. After all, most rational individuals might look at a crumbling, potentially dangerous structure and think, "You know what? I'll pass on that adventure. Thank you very much." The phenomenon has several psychological roots. First, there's the concept of ruin lust, or ruinophilia, the aesthetic and emotional appeal of ruins and decay. This isn't a modern invention. The Romans were fascinated by Greek ruins, and the Romantic movement of the 18th and 19th centuries celebrated the beauty of decay and the sublime terror of forgotten places. There's also the thrill of discovery. Abandoned places represent uncharted territory in an increasingly mapped and surveilled world. In an age where you can virtually visit almost any location on Earth through Google Street View, abandoned places offer genuine mystery and the possibility of finding something previously unknown. Then there's the historical aspect. These places are time capsules, offering glimpses into past ways of life. For archaeologists and historians, abandoned sites are invaluable resources. For amateur explorers, they're windows into stories that textbooks might not tell. Finally, there's what psychologists call sensation seeking, the drive to experience novel, complex, and intense sensations. Exploring abandoned places certainly fits this description, combining physical challenge, mental stimulation, and often a healthy dose of adrenaline. Now, while these motivations help explain why people explore abandoned places, they also help us understand why some of these explorations go tragically wrong. The very qualities that make these places exciting, their isolation, their unpredictability, their hidden dangers, also make them potentially deadly. Our first case takes us back to 1913 and involves one of America's most celebrated writers and satirists, Ambrose Bierce. Now, you might be wondering what a writer is doing in a lecture about explorers, but Bierce's final adventure and disappearance perfectly illustrates our theme. Ambrose Bierce was 71 years old when he decided to travel to Mexico to observe the Mexican Revolution firsthand. This wasn't entirely out of character for Bierce, who had served as a Union soldier in the American Civil War and had always been drawn to conflict and danger. His writings, including The Devil's Dictionary and An Occurrence at Owl Creek Bridge, often dealt with themes of death, war, and the absurd. In October 1913, Bierce wrote to his niece, "Goodbye. If you hear of my being stood up against a Mexican stone wall and shot to rags, please know that I think that a pretty good way to depart this life. It beats old age, disease, or falling down the cellar stairs." Bierce traveled to Mexico and reportedly joined Pancho Villa's army as an observer. His last known letter was dated December 26, 1913, from Chihuahua, Mexico. After that, Ambrose Bierce simply vanished from history. Now, you might argue that Mexico during a revolution isn't exactly an abandoned place in the traditional sense, but here's where it gets interesting. Bierce was reportedly fascinated by the abandoned haciendas and ghost towns scattered throughout the Mexican countryside, remnants of earlier colonial and mining booms. Several witness accounts suggest he was planning to visit some of these abandoned settlements to gather material for his writing. The abandoned mining town of Ojinaga, near the Texas border, was one location where Bierce was reportedly seen. This town had been largely deserted after the silver mines played out, leaving behind empty buildings, abandoned mine shafts, and a general atmosphere of desolation. Local accounts suggest Bierce was exploring these abandoned areas when he disappeared. What makes Bierce's case particularly intriguing is the sheer number of theories about his fate. Some suggest he was executed by Villa's forces, others that he was killed by opposing forces, and still others that he simply decided to disappear and start a new life. But the theory that resonates most with our theme is that he met his end while exploring one of the many abandoned mining operations in the region, perhaps falling down an old mine shaft or becoming lost in the maze of abandoned tunnels that honeycombed the area. Bierce's disappearance reminds us that the appeal of abandoned places isn't limited to professional explorers or archaeologists. Writers, artists, and creative individuals are often drawn to these spaces for inspiration, sometimes with tragic consequences. Now we move from Mexico to the Amazon rainforest, and one of the most famous disappearances in exploration history. Lieutenant Colonel Percy Harrison Fawcett was a British artillery officer, archaeologist, and South American explorer. Between 1906 and 1925, he made numerous expeditions into the Amazon, mapping uncharted regions and searching for ancient civilizations. Fawcett became obsessed with finding what he called the Lost City of Z, an advanced ancient civilization he believed existed somewhere in the Brazilian Amazon. This wasn't entirely fantastical thinking. The Amazon has indeed yielded evidence of sophisticated pre-Columbian civilizations, though nothing quite matching Fawcett's grand vision. In 1925, Fawcett organized what would be his final expedition. Accompanied by his eldest son Jack and Jack's friend Raleigh Rimmel, Fawcett set off into the Mato Grosso region of Brazil. Their destination was an area where Fawcett believed he would find extensive ruins of an ancient civilization. The last confirmed contact with the expedition was on May 29, 1925, when Fawcett sent a message to his wife stating that they were at a place called Dead Horse Camp and were about to enter unexplored territory. After that, the three men vanished without a trace. What makes this relevant to our discussion of abandoned places is that Fawcett was specifically seeking out ancient ruins, places that had once been centers of human activity, but had been abandoned and reclaimed by the jungle. His journals and letters describe finding various stone structures, pottery fragments, and other evidence of past civilizations during his earlier expeditions. The irony of Fawcett's disappearance is particularly poignant. Here was a man who had spent decades exploring some of the world's most dangerous territory, who had survived encounters with hostile tribes, dangerous wildlife, and tropical diseases. Yet he vanished while searching for the ultimate abandoned place, a lost city. Over the years, numerous rescue expeditions were mounted to find Fawcett and his companions. Many of these expeditions also encountered disasters, with several rescuers themselves disappearing or dying in the attempt. The Fawcett mystery became so notorious that it inspired countless books, documentaries, and even influenced popular culture. Arthur Conan Doyle's The Lost World was partially inspired by Fawcett's accounts of the Amazon. Recent archaeological discoveries have shown that Fawcett wasn't entirely wrong about advanced civilizations in the Amazon. Satellite imagery and ground-penetrating radar have revealed extensive networks of settlements, roads, and agricultural systems throughout the region. In some sense, Fawcett was ahead of his time in recognizing that the Amazon had once supported large, sophisticated populations. But his fate remains unknown. Did the expedition fall victim to hostile tribes, disease, wild animals, or did they perhaps find their way into some ancient ruin system and become lost in underground chambers or collapsed structures? We may never know, but Fawcett's disappearance stands as a testament to both the allure and the danger of seeking out abandoned places. Let's shift from the Amazon to the Mediterranean, to a small island between Venice and Lido that has one of the darkest histories in Europe. Poveglia Island, barely 17 acres in size, has been abandoned for decades, but its history makes it one of the most notorious abandoned places in the world. During the bubonic plague outbreaks of the 14th century, and again in the 1790s, Poveglia served as a quarantine station, where plague victims were sent to die. It's estimated that over 160,000 people died on the island over the centuries. Later, in the 1920s, it housed a mental hospital where, according to local legends, a sadistic doctor performed horrific experiments on patients. The island was finally abandoned in 1968, leaving behind crumbling buildings, overgrown vegetation, and what locals claim is soil that is 50% human ash from the centuries of cremations. In 2009, a team of urban explorers and paranormal investigators decided to spend several nights on Poveglia to document the abandoned hospital and plague buildings. The team consisted of 5 members, 3 Italian urban explorers, 1 British documentary filmmaker, and 1 American archaeologist interested in the medieval plague structures. The team arrived on the island on October 15, 2009, with permission from Italian authorities for a 5-day archaeological and documentary survey. They set up base camp in the least damaged building and began systematic exploration and documentation of the site. For the first 3 days, everything proceeded normally. The team documented the ruins, took extensive photographs, and the archaeologist collected soil samples and pottery fragments. Their daily radio check-ins with mainland support were routine and professional. On the 4th day, October 18, the team missed their scheduled evening radio check-in. When they missed the morning check-in on October 19 as well, authorities were notified. A search team reached the island that afternoon. What they found was puzzling and disturbing. The base camp was intact, with all equipment present and accounted for. Personal belongings, including wallets, passports, and cameras, were left behind. Food was still on the table from what appeared to be an interrupted meal. Most bizarrely, all 5 team members had simply vanished. The investigation revealed several strange details. The team's exploration logs, meticulously kept for the first 3 days, ended abruptly mid-sentence on the evening of October 17. The final entry, written in the archaeologist's handwriting, read, "Found entrance to underground chamber system. Extensive network appears to connect several buildings. Stonework suggests pre-14th century construction. Investigating tomorrow morning with full and then nothing." A thorough search of the island revealed no trace of the missing team members. Divers searched the waters around the island, thinking perhaps someone had fallen in and the others had attempted a rescue. Dogs were brought in to search for scent trails, but the animals behaved strangely on the island, often refusing to enter certain areas or becoming agitated for no apparent reason. The most significant discovery was a partially collapsed entrance to what appeared to be an extensive underground tunnel system. The stonework did indeed appear much older than the Plague-era buildings above ground, suggesting that Poveglia had been used as a settlement long before it became a quarantine station. The tunnel system was partially explored by professional cave rescue teams, but unstable conditions and frequent collapses made thorough investigation impossible. No trace of the missing team was found in the accessible portions of the tunnels. The case remains open, though it's rarely discussed in official circles. The most likely explanation is that the team became lost or trapped in the underground tunnel system, possibly victims of a collapse that sealed them in. However, no conclusive evidence has ever been found. The Poveglia disappearance illustrates several key dangers of exploring abandoned places. Underground structures in abandoned sites are often unstable, having been weakened by years of neglect and weathering. Without proper cave exploration equipment and expertise, venturing into such spaces can be fatal. Additionally, the psychological effects of exploring places with dark histories can impair judgment and decision-making. Our next case brings us to the modern era and the world of urban exploration, or urbex as it's commonly known. Gary Hinge was an experienced urban explorer and YouTube content creator who specialized in exploring abandoned military installations and ghost towns throughout the American Southwest. In November 2017, Gary announced to his followers that he was planning to investigate an abandoned military facility in the Nevada desert, reportedly a Cold War-era testing site that had been decommissioned in the 1970s. Gary was known for his thorough research and professional approach to exploration, always obtaining proper permissions when possible and maintaining detailed logs of his expeditions. Gary's plan was to spend a week documenting the abandoned facility, which reportedly included underground bunkers, testing chambers, and various surface structures. He had obtained GPS coordinates from a fellow explorer and had spent months researching the site's history and layout. On November 13, 2017, Gary posted a video to his channel showing his preparation for the expedition. He displayed his equipment, discussed his research, and provided his planned itinerary. He was scheduled to return on November 20. Gary never returned from his expedition. When he failed to check in with family members on November 21, they contacted authorities. Gary's vehicle was found parked at a remote trailhead about 15 miles from the abandoned facility. His exploration equipment was still in the vehicle, along with extra water and food supplies. A search of the abandoned military installation revealed Gary's backpack and camera equipment inside one of the underground bunker complexes. The camera contained footage from the first day of his exploration, showing Gary systematically documenting the various abandoned structures. The final footage showed Gary entering what appeared to be a deep underground section of the facility. The last coherent footage showed Gary in a long concrete tunnel lined with abandoned equipment. His commentary was professional and normal until the very end of the recording, where he can be heard saying, "Wait, there's something down here. This wasn't in the blueprints. I'm going to check this out." The video then cuts to black. Attempts to continue the search deeper into the underground sections of the facility encountered significant obstacles. Much of the underground complex had been sealed or had collapsed over the decades since abandonment. Environmental hazards, including asbestos, lead paint, and potentially radioactive materials, made extended search operations dangerous. Professional rescue teams using specialized equipment were able to access some of the deeper sections of the facility, but no trace of Gary was found. The underground complex proved to be much more extensive than originally believed, with multiple levels and connection tunnels that weren't present in the declassified military blueprints Gary had been using. The investigation revealed that the facility had been used for more than just standard military testing. Classified documents obtained through Freedom of Information Act requests showed that the site had been used for experimental weapons testing and possibly for storage of hazardous materials. Some sections of the underground complex had been hastily sealed when the facility was decommissioned, possibly trapping dangerous materials inside. Gary's disappearance highlights the particular dangers faced by modern urban explorers investigating abandoned military facilities. These sites often contain multiple hazards beyond structural instability, including chemical contamination, radiation, and extensive underground complexes that may not be accurately mapped. The case also illustrates how the documentation practices of modern explorers can provide valuable information about their final movements, but can also create additional mysteries. Gary's methodical approach to exploration, which served him well in previous expeditions, may have led him deeper into danger as he followed his instinct to document everything he encountered. The Paris catacombs represent one of the world's most famous abandoned underground spaces, and unfortunately, they've also been the site of multiple disappearances over the years. The official catacombs, open to tourists, represent only a tiny fraction of the vast network of tunnels, quarries, and burial chambers that lie beneath Paris. In 1996, a group of 4 students from the Sorbonne, 3 French and 1 American exchange student, decided to explore the unofficial portions of the catacombs. These cataphiles, as they're known, were experienced in navigating the underground tunnels and had made numerous previous expeditions into the forbidden sections. The group consisted of Marie Dubois and Jean-Luc Moreau, both geology students, Pierre Cassel, studying archaeology, and Jennifer Morrison, an American art history student. They were all in their early 20s and had been exploring the catacombs together for over a year. On March 15, 1996, the group entered the catacombs through an unofficial entrance in the 14th arrondissement. Their planned route would take them through several abandoned sections, including some medieval quarries and a section of tunnels that had been walled off in the 19th century but had since been reopened by other explorers. The students were well prepared, with proper lighting, maps, food, and water for a planned 12-hour expedition. They had informed friends of their itinerary and were expected to return by midnight on March 16. When the students failed to return, their friends initially weren't concerned. Extended catacomb expeditions weren't uncommon, and the group was known for their thorough exploration style. However, when they hadn't returned by March 18, friends contacted authorities. The search for the missing students revealed the true complexity and danger of the Paris underground. The official maps of the catacombs, maintained by the Paris municipal authorities, showed only a fraction of the actual tunnel network. Centuries of quarrying, combined with natural cave formation and unofficial excavations, had created a labyrinthine system that no one fully understood. Professional cave rescue teams, assisted by experienced cataphiles, began a systematic search of the underground network. What they found was a maze of interconnected tunnels, many unmarked and unmapped. Some sections had been flooded, others had collapsed, and still others had been deliberately sealed off for unknown reasons. On March 25, rescuers found evidence of the missing students in a section of tunnel that had been abandoned since the 18th century. Personal items, including Jennifer Morrison's distinctive backpack and Jean-Luc Moreau's geology hammer, were discovered in a chamber decorated with medieval stone carvings. The chamber itself was remarkable, clearly much older than the 18th century limestone quarries that surrounded it. The stone carvings depicted religious scenes and appeared to be from the 12th or 13th century, suggesting the chamber had originally been part of a medieval monastery or religious complex that had been incorporated into the later quarry system. Most puzzling was the arrangement of the students' belongings. Rather than being scattered as if dropped during a panic or accident, the items were carefully arranged in the center of the chamber, almost as if they had been deliberately placed there. The students' maps and notebooks were present, but showed no indication of distress or emergency. Despite extensive searching of the surrounding tunnel network, no trace of the 4 students themselves was ever found. The chamber where their belongings were discovered had multiple exits leading to different parts of the tunnel system, making it impossible to determine which direction the students might have gone. Subsequent investigation revealed that the chamber had a history of strange occurrences. Records from the 18th century quarrying operation mentioned that workers had refused to enter the chamber, claiming it was cursed. 19th century police reports documented several disappearances in the area, though these had been attributed to the general dangers of the underground quarries. The case remains open, though active investigations ceased in the late 1990s. The most likely explanation is that the students became lost in the maze of tunnels and succumbed to exposure, dehydration, or injury in a section that hasn't been discovered. However, the careful arrangement of their belongings and the chamber's strange history have fueled more exotic theories. The Paris catacombs case illustrates several important aspects of disappearances in abandoned underground spaces. The complexity and interconnected nature of such systems can make navigation extremely difficult, even for experienced explorers. Additionally, the historical layering of different construction periods can create confusion, as maps and documentation from different eras may not accurately reflect the current state of the tunnels. As we've seen from our case studies, disappearances in abandoned places aren't limited to the distant past. In fact, the modern phenomenon of urban exploration has created new opportunities for people to encounter these dangerous situations. Let's examine how technology has both helped and hindered modern exploration of abandoned places. On the positive side, modern explorers have access to tools that earlier adventurers could only dream of. GPS devices can provide precise location tracking, though they're often ineffective in underground or heavily enclosed spaces. Digital cameras and video equipment allow for detailed documentation of explorations, which can be crucial for rescue efforts if something goes wrong. Emergency communication devices, including satellite messengers and personal locator beacons, can summon help from remote locations. Drone technology has revolutionized the initial survey of abandoned sites, allowing explorers to assess dangers and plan routes without immediate physical risk. Ground-penetrating radar and other scanning technologies can reveal hidden chambers, structural weaknesses, or other hazards before exploration begins. However, technology has also contributed to some problems. The ease of sharing information online has led to the proliferation of exploration sites and coordinates, sometimes bringing inexperienced explorers to dangerous locations. The desire to create compelling content for social media platforms can encourage risk-taking behavior and poor decision-making. The case of Gary Hinge, which we discussed earlier, illustrates this double-edged nature of technology. His careful documentation provided valuable information about his final movements, but his desire to explore and document everything he encountered may have led him into danger. Modern urban exploration communities have developed extensive safety protocols and ethical guidelines, but enforcement is impossible in such a decentralized activity. Experienced explorers emphasize the importance of proper preparation, appropriate equipment, and the buddy system, but lone wolf explorers continue to encounter problems. The internet has also created new categories of abandoned places to explore. Information about decommissioned military facilities, abandoned industrial sites, and closed institutions spreads rapidly online, often accompanied by precise coordinates and access instructions. While this democratization of information has positive aspects, it also means that dangerous sites can attract unprepared explorers. Understanding why people disappear in abandoned places requires examining not just the physical dangers, but also the psychological factors that can lead to poor decision-making in these environments. Abandoned places can have powerful psychological effects on visitors. The combination of isolation, silence, decay, and often dark history can create what psychologists call liminal anxiety, a state of unease that occurs when people find themselves in transitional or boundary spaces that don't fit normal categories of experience. This anxiety can manifest in several ways. Some people experience heightened alertness and caution, which can be protective. Others may experience confusion, disorientation, or impaired judgment. In extreme cases, people may experience panic attacks or dissociative episodes that can lead to dangerous behavior. The phenomenon of exploration fever is well documented among professional archaeologists and explorers. This is a state of intense excitement and focus that can occur when someone makes a significant discovery or encounters something unexpected. While this state can drive important discoveries, it can also lead to tunnel vision and poor risk assessment. In the case of Gary Hinge, his final recorded words suggest he may have been experiencing exploration fever when he encountered something unexpected in the underground facility. His decision to investigate further, rather than returning to the surface to get additional equipment or support, may have been influenced by this psychological state. Group dynamics also play a significant role in exploration safety. Groups can provide mutual support and oversight, helping to prevent individual members from making dangerous decisions. However, groups can also create pressure to take risks, especially when group members don't want to appear cowardly or unadventurous. The Paris catacombs case involved an experienced group that had previously explored together successfully. However, groups can also experience collective poor judgment, especially when faced with unexpected situations or discoveries. Another important psychological factor is what researchers call normalization of deviance. This occurs when people gradually accept higher levels of risk through repeated exposure to dangerous situations. Each successful exploration can make the next level of risk seem acceptable, leading to a gradual escalation that eventually results in tragedy. Understanding these psychological factors is crucial for developing better safety protocols and training for people who explore abandoned places. Professional archaeology and exploration programs now include training in risk assessment, group dynamics, and psychological preparedness alongside technical skills. While psychological factors play an important role in exploration disappearances, the physical dangers of abandoned places are very real and often underestimated by amateur explorers. Let's examine the various categories of hazards that can be encountered in these environments. Structural instability is perhaps the most obvious danger. Buildings and structures that have been abandoned for extended periods often suffer from foundation problems, roof collapses, floor failures, and wall instability. Weather exposure, lack of maintenance, and vandalism can all contribute to structural deterioration. What might appear to be a solid floor or staircase could collapse without warning under the weight of an explorer. Underground spaces present particular challenges. Mine shafts, tunnel systems, and basement areas can suffer from cave-ins, flooding, or gas accumulation. Many abandoned industrial sites include underground storage areas, utility tunnels, or waste disposal systems that may not be apparent from surface exploration. Environmental hazards are equally dangerous, but often less obvious. Many abandoned industrial sites contain hazardous materials, including asbestos, lead paint, chemical residues, and in some cases, radioactive materials. These substances may not pose immediate danger, but extended exposure during exploration can have serious health consequences. Air quality is a major concern in enclosed abandoned spaces. Carbon monoxide, methane, hydrogen sulfide, and other dangerous gases can accumulate in underground areas or poorly ventilated buildings. Some of these gases are odorless and can cause unconsciousness or death without warning. Water hazards are common in abandoned places. Flooded basements, hidden wells, contaminated water sources, and unstable ice in cold climates all pose risks. Many abandoned industrial sites were built near water sources, and changes in water levels over time can create unexpected hazards. Wildlife can also pose risks, particularly in abandoned places that have been reclaimed by nature. Depending on the location, explorers might encounter anything from aggressive birds nesting in buildings to large mammals using abandoned structures for shelter. Venomous snakes, spiders, and insects are common in abandoned buildings in many regions. Navigation hazards are subtle but serious. Abandoned places often lack proper lighting, signage, or clear pathways. It's easy to become lost in complex structures, especially underground systems. Many abandoned places have been modified over time, making maps and floor plans unreliable. The combination of these various hazards can create compound dangers that are greater than the sum of their parts. An explorer who encounters a structural hazard might flee in panic, only to run into an environmental or navigation hazard. Poor visibility might make it difficult to assess structural stability, while environmental hazards might impair judgment needed for safe navigation. The tragic disappearances we've examined have contributed to the development of better safety protocols for exploring abandoned places. Professional archaeological and exploration organizations have established comprehensive guidelines, and even amateur urban exploration communities have developed extensive safety cultures. Modern exploration safety begins with thorough research and planning. This includes studying historical records, obtaining current maps and surveys, researching known hazards, and consulting with local authorities and previous explorers. The goal is to understand as much as possible about a site before setting foot on it. Equipment selection has become increasingly sophisticated. Modern explorers carry multiple light sources, navigation aids, communication devices, first aid supplies, and safety equipment appropriate to the specific hazards they might encounter. Environmental monitoring equipment can detect dangerous gases, radiation, or other hazards. The buddy system has become standard practice, with most exploration groups requiring minimum team sizes and establishing clear protocols for maintaining contact with surface support. Team members are assigned specific roles and responsibilities, and regular check-ins are mandatory. Communication planning is crucial for safe exploration. This includes establishing check-in schedules with outside contacts, carrying emergency communication devices, and creating detailed itineraries that can guide rescue efforts if needed. Modern satellite communication devices work even in remote areas, though they may be ineffective in underground locations. Training and preparation have also evolved significantly. Many universities and professional organizations now offer courses in exploration safety, hazard recognition, and emergency response. These programs teach not just technical skills, but also risk assessment, decision-making, and group dynamics. Documentation practices serve both exploratory and safety purposes. Detailed records of exploration routes, discoveries, and hazards encountered can be invaluable for future explorers and for rescue efforts if someone goes missing. However, the documentation must be balanced against safety. The desire to get the perfect photograph or video shouldn't override basic safety precautions. Emergency response planning is now considered an integral part of exploration preparation. This includes identifying the nearest medical facilities, understanding local rescue capabilities, and pre-positioning emergency equipment. Some exploration teams now include medically trained personnel and carry advanced first aid equipment. Legal and ethical considerations have also become more prominent. Many abandoned places are privately owned or legally protected, and unauthorized exploration can result in criminal charges. Professional exploration now emphasizes obtaining proper permissions and working with local authorities. While technology has greatly improved exploration safety, it has also created new challenges and, paradoxically, may have contributed to some modern disappearances. Let's examine this complex relationship between technology and exploration safety. GPS technology is perhaps the most significant advancement for exploration safety, but it's not infallible. GPS signals can be blocked or distorted by heavy tree cover, deep valleys, underground locations, or certain building materials. Explorers who rely too heavily on GPS without backup navigation skills may find themselves lost when the technology fails. Cell phone technology has created an expectation of constant communication that may not be realistic in remote or underground locations. Explorers may venture into dangerous areas assuming they can call for help, only to discover they have no signal when emergency strikes. Social media and content creation platforms have changed the motivations for exploration. The pressure to create compelling content for online audiences can encourage risk-taking behavior and poor decision-making. The desire to be the first to explore a particular site or to capture dramatic footage can override safety considerations. The democratization of information through the internet has made it easier for inexperienced explorers to find dangerous locations. Detailed descriptions, coordinates, and access information are widely shared online, often without adequate safety warnings or discussions of required experience levels. Digital photography and video equipment now allow explorers to document their adventures in unprecedented detail, which can be valuable for safety and rescue purposes. However, the focus on documentation can also distract from hazard awareness and safety protocols. Modern mapping and satellite imagery can provide detailed information about abandoned sites before exploration begins, but this information may be outdated or incomplete. Structures can collapse, new hazards can develop, and access routes can change between the time satellite images are captured and when explorers arrive on site. Communication technology has also created new expectations for rescue response. Modern explorers may assume that emergency services can quickly locate and rescue them using their electronic devices, but this isn't always realistic, especially in remote or underground locations. The internet has also contributed to the phenomenon of exploration tourism, where people travel long distances to visit famous abandoned places they've seen online. These tourists may lack familiarity with local conditions, emergency services, or specific site hazards. Not every exploration of abandoned places ends in tragedy. Examining successful rescues can provide valuable insights into what makes the difference between survival and disappearance. Let's look at several cases where explorers encountered serious difficulties but were successfully rescued. In 2019, two urban explorers became trapped in a collapsed tunnel system beneath an abandoned factory in Detroit. The explorers, experienced members of the local urbex community, were investigating the underground portions of the Packard automotive plant when a section of tunnel collapsed, blocking their exit route. Fortunately, the explorers had followed several key safety protocols. They had informed friends of their planned route and expected return time. They carried multiple light sources and emergency supplies, and they had working cell phones with external battery packs. When the collapse occurred, they were able to call for help and provide their approximate location. The rescue took nearly 12 hours and required specialized equipment and expertise from the Detroit Fire Department's technical rescue team. The explorers remained calm, conserved their resources, and provided regular updates to rescue coordinators. Both were successfully extracted with only minor injuries. This case illustrates several important factors in successful rescue: advanced planning and communication, proper equipment, trained rescue personnel, and the psychological preparation to remain calm in emergency situations. Another successful rescue occurred in 2020 in the abandoned Centralia mine system in Pennsylvania. A group of 3 explorers became lost in the extensive tunnel network when their map proved inaccurate. The team had entered the mine system to document the ongoing underground coal fire that has been burning since 1962. The explorers had violated several safety protocols. They had entered without informing anyone of their plans. They had only basic lighting, and they were unfamiliar with the specific mine system. However, they made several good decisions when they realized they were lost. They stopped moving to conserve energy and battery power. They used their brightest light as a signal beacon, and they stayed together as a group. A search was initiated when one of the explorers' family members became concerned about the extended absence. Local mine rescue teams, familiar with the Centralia system, were able to locate the group using thermal imaging equipment that detected their body heat. The rescue took place about 18 hours after the explorers had become lost. This case demonstrates that even when initial safety protocols are violated, good decision-making during the emergency can still lead to successful rescue. It also highlights the importance of specialized local knowledge and equipment in rescue operations. A third successful rescue case occurred in 2021 in the abandoned subway tunnels beneath Cincinnati. A solo explorer was investigating the unfinished subway system when he fell and injured his leg, making it impossible for him to climb back to street level. This explorer had followed excellent safety protocols. He had a detailed itinerary filed with local urbex groups. He carried emergency communication equipment, including a satellite messenger, and he had extensive first aid training and supplies. When the accident occurred, the explorer was able to provide his precise location using GPS coordinates from his satellite messenger. He administered first aid to himself, made himself comfortable to wait for rescue, and maintained regular communication with emergency services. The rescue was completed in under 4 hours, with the explorer suffering only a broken ankle. This case demonstrates how proper preparation and equipment can turn a potentially fatal situation into a manageable emergency. These successful rescues share several common elements: advanced planning and communication with outside parties, appropriate emergency equipment, psychological preparation to remain calm under stress, and the availability of trained rescue personnel with appropriate equipment and local knowledge. As we examine the phenomenon of disappearances in abandoned places, we must also consider the ethical dimensions of exploration. These spaces often have complex ownership, legal status, and cultural significance that explorers must navigate responsibly. Property rights present the most basic ethical consideration. Most abandoned places remain privately owned, even when they appear completely deserted. Exploring such places without permission constitutes trespassing and can result in legal consequences. However, the reality is more complex. Many abandoned places have unclear ownership, absentee owners, or ownership disputes that make obtaining permission difficult or impossible. The urban exploration community has developed ethical guidelines that attempt to address these issues. The most common principle is take only pictures, leave only footprints. The idea that exploration should not result in damage, theft, or alteration of the site. However, even careful exploration can cause cumulative damage over time, especially in structurally fragile buildings. Safety responsibilities extend beyond the individual explorer. When someone disappears in an abandoned place, rescue efforts put other people at risk and consume significant public resources. Emergency responders, volunteers, and fellow explorers who participate in search and rescue operations face the same hazards that claim the original victim. Cultural and historical considerations add another layer of ethical complexity. Many abandoned places have significant historical, archaeological, or cultural value. Exploration activities can damage or destroy irreplaceable artifacts, structures, or archaeological contexts. Additionally, some abandoned places may have spiritual or cultural significance to local communities. The documentation and sharing of exploration activities also raises ethical questions. Publishing detailed information about abandoned places can lead to increased visitation, which may result in damage, accidents, or legal problems for future explorers. However, documentation can also contribute to historical preservation and public awareness of these spaces. Commercial exploitation of abandoned places presents additional ethical dilemmas. The popularity of urban exploration has led to books, documentaries, tours, and other commercial activities that profit from these spaces. While this can raise awareness and potentially contribute to preservation efforts, it can also increase risks and damage to the sites. Environmental considerations are increasingly important, as abandoned places often contain hazardous materials or serve as habitat for wildlife. Exploration activities can disturb contaminated materials, damage sensitive ecosystems, or interfere with natural reclamation processes. The question of whether to report discoveries made in abandoned places creates additional ethical complexity. Archaeological finds, historical artifacts, or evidence of illegal activities might be encountered during exploration. The appropriate response to such discoveries isn't always clear, especially when the exploration itself was unauthorized. These ethical considerations don't have simple answers, and different stakeholders often have conflicting interests and perspectives. However, awareness of these issues is essential for responsible exploration and for understanding the broader context of disappearances in abandoned places. Analyzing the psychological characteristics of people who disappear in abandoned places can provide insights into prevention and risk factors. While each case is unique, certain patterns emerge from the collective data. Risk-taking personality traits appear frequently among those who disappear. These individuals often score high on measures of sensation-seeking, novelty-seeking, and openness to experience. While these traits can drive valuable discoveries and adventures, they can also lead to poor risk assessment and dangerous decision-making. Previous exploration experience doesn't necessarily correlate with safety. Some of our case studies involved highly experienced explorers who had completed dozens or hundreds of previous expeditions safely. Experience can create overconfidence and normalization of deviance, where gradually increasing risks seem acceptable because previous risks were successfully managed. Solo exploration appears to be a significant risk factor. While many people prefer to explore alone for various reasons, better stealth, personal reflection, avoiding group dynamics, solo explorers lack the safety net of companions who can provide assistance. alternative perspectives, or rescue coordination if something goes wrong. Obsessive or compulsive personality traits may contribute to some disappearances. Individuals who become intensely focused on particular sites, discoveries, or documentation goals may persist in dangerous situations longer than prudent. The drive to complete a mission or solve a mystery can override normal safety considerations. Mental health factors may play a role in some cases, though this is difficult to assess retrospectively. Depression, anxiety, or other conditions might impair judgment or create situations where individuals are less concerned about personal safety. Additionally, some people may use dangerous exploration as a form of indirect self-harm. Age and life circumstances also show interesting patterns. Young adults and middle-aged individuals experiencing major life transitions appear to be overrepresented among those who disappear. These groups may be more likely to engage in risk-taking behavior or may use exploration as a way to cope with stress or uncertainty. Educational background and technical skills don't appear to provide significant protection against disappearance. Our case studies include individuals with advanced degrees, professional experience, and extensive technical knowledge who still encountered fatal situations. Gender differences in exploration disappearances are complex. While male explorers appear to have higher rates of solo exploration and risk-taking behavior, female explorers may face different types of risks and may be more likely to take certain safety precautions. Social isolation may be both a cause and effect of intensive exploration activity. Some individuals who disappear appear to have been increasingly isolated from family and friends, with exploration becoming their primary social outlet and source of identity. Understanding these psychological patterns can help in developing better safety education, risk assessment tools, and intervention strategies for high-risk explorers. The physical environment of abandoned places is constantly changing, creating new hazards and altering the risk profiles of previously explored sites. Understanding these environmental changes is crucial for comprehending why some disappearances occur in places that have been safely explored before. Climate change has begun to affect abandoned places in various ways. More frequent extreme weather events can accelerate structural deterioration, create new flooding patterns, or cause sudden collapses in previously stable buildings. Rising sea levels affect coastal abandoned sites, while changing precipitation patterns can alter groundwater levels and create new flooding risks in underground spaces. Vegetation growth in abandoned places follows predictable patterns, but can create unexpected hazards. Trees and large plants can grow through building foundations, walls, and roofs, destabilizing structures in ways that aren't immediately obvious. Root systems can damage underground utilities, drainage systems, and structural foundations. Urban development around abandoned places can create new access challenges and safety risks. Construction activities can alter drainage patterns, change access routes, or destabilize adjacent structures. Additionally, increased security measures around developing areas can force explorers to use more dangerous access methods. Vandalism and unauthorized modifications to abandoned places create ongoing safety hazards. Graffiti artists, squatters, and other visitors may alter structures in ways that create new dangers, removing safety barriers, creating new openings, or weakening structural elements. Drug manufacturing operations in abandoned buildings can leave behind toxic chemicals and hazardous equipment. Wildlife populations in abandoned places change over time as ecological succession progresses. What begins as habitat for small animals may eventually support larger or more dangerous species. Additionally, wildlife behavior can change seasonally, creating temporary but significant risks for explorers. Contamination spread is an ongoing process in many abandoned industrial sites. Chemical spills, leaking storage tanks, and deteriorating waste containment systems can create expanding zones of contamination. What was safe to explore 5 years ago may now be dangerously contaminated. Utility system failures in abandoned places create cascading risks. Water systems may fail gradually, leading to flooding or structural damage that develops over months or years. Electrical systems may develop shorts or other hazards as insulation deteriorates and wiring corrodes. Seismic activity and soil subsidence can affect abandoned places even in areas not traditionally considered geologically active. Mining subsidence, groundwater pumping, and other human activities can cause sudden structural failures years or decades after initial exploration. These environmental changes mean that abandoned places must be continuously reassessed for safety. Information and maps from previous explorations may become dangerously outdated, and sites that were once considered safe may develop serious hazards. The relationship between disappearances in abandoned places and modern media technology deserves special attention, as it represents a new factor that didn't exist for earlier generations of explorers. The rise of social media, video platforms, and digital documentation has fundamentally changed both the motivations for exploration and the risks involved. Content creation pressures have introduced new psychological factors into exploration activities. Explorers who document their adventures for online audiences may feel pressure to find increasingly dramatic or dangerous locations, perform risky behaviors for compelling footage, or continue exploring in dangerous conditions to complete their documentation goals. The viral nature of online content means that locations can go from unknown to heavily trafficked almost overnight. When an exploration video gains widespread attention, it can lead to an influx of inexperienced visitors who lack the skills and equipment needed for safe exploration. This phenomenon has been observed at numerous abandoned locations worldwide. Equipment expectations have changed as explorers attempt to create professional quality documentation. Heavy camera equipment, lighting rigs, and other production gear can impede safe movement, create additional hazards during emergency situations, and encourage explorers to spend longer periods in dangerous locations to capture desired footage. The revenue potential of exploration content has created semi-professional and professional urban explorers who may feel economic pressure to take risks for compelling content. When exploration becomes a source of income, the balance between safety and spectacle can shift in dangerous directions. Live streaming and real-time documentation create new safety challenges. Explorers who broadcast their activities live may feel pressure to continue despite encountering dangerous conditions, or may become distracted by audience interaction when they should be focused on safety. Additionally, live streams can provide real-time documentation of emergencies, but they don't necessarily improve rescue chances. Copyright and legal issues surrounding exploration documentation can create complicated situations when disappearances occur. Video footage, photographs, and other documentation created by missing explorers may contain crucial information for rescue efforts, but legal restrictions can sometimes delay access to this information. The commercialization of exploration has led to organized tours, guidebooks, and other commercial activities that can increase traffic to dangerous locations. While professional tour operators may implement safety measures, the existence of commercial exploration activities can give amateur explorers a false sense of security about site safety. Online communities and forums dedicated to urban exploration serve important safety functions by sharing information about hazards, rescue resources, and safety techniques. However, these same platforms can also spread inaccurate information, encourage risky behavior through peer pressure, or facilitate access to particularly dangerous locations. The global nature of online exploration content means that people may travel long distances to visit famous abandoned places they've seen in videos or photographs. These exploration tourists may lack local knowledge about specific hazards, emergency services, or legal restrictions that could be crucial for safe exploration. The phenomenon of disappearances in abandoned places has prompted various legal and regulatory responses from authorities worldwide. These measures attempt to balance public safety concerns with property rights and the legitimate interests of researchers and historians. Access restrictions have become increasingly common around dangerous abandoned sites. These range from simple no trespassing signs to sophisticated security systems with cameras, sensors, and active patrols. However, Such measures can sometimes make exploration more dangerous by forcing people to use riskier access methods or explore alone to avoid detection. Liability questions surrounding abandoned places are complex and vary significantly by jurisdiction. Property owners may face liability for injuries that occur on their land, even if the visitors were trespassing. This has led some owners to invest in security measures or demolition rather than risk potential lawsuits. Emergency response protocols have evolved to address the specific challenges of rescues in abandoned places. Many fire departments and emergency services now have specialized teams and equipment for confined space rescues, structural collapse situations, and hazardous material incidents. However, rescue capabilities vary significantly between jurisdictions. Permitting systems for legitimate exploration and research activities have been implemented in some areas. These systems attempt to allow authorized exploration while maintaining safety standards and protecting property rights. However, permit processes can be slow, expensive, or bureaucratically complex. Criminal penalties for unauthorized exploration have been increased in some jurisdictions, particularly around sites with significant safety hazards or historical importance. However, enforcement remains challenging due to the remote nature of many abandoned places and limited law enforcement resources. Insurance and liability issues affect both property owners and explorers. Standard homeowners and liability insurance policies often exclude coverage for injuries related to trespassing or exploration activities. Specialized insurance for urban exploration activities is available but expensive and limited in scope. Historical preservation laws create additional legal complexity around abandoned places. Sites with historical significance may be protected from disturbance or alteration, even when they're privately owned and structurally dangerous. Balancing preservation interests with safety concerns requires careful legal analysis. International variations in laws and regulations create complications for explorers who travel across borders. What may be legal or tolerated in one country could result in serious criminal charges in another. Language barriers and unfamiliarity with local legal systems compound these risks. Professional standards and certification programs have been developed for legitimate exploration activities. Archaeological societies, engineering organizations, and safety professionals have created training programs and certification systems that attempt to establish competency standards for various types of exploration. Looking toward the future, several trends and technologies may significantly impact the safety of exploring abandoned places. Understanding these developments can help us prepare for new challenges and opportunities in exploration safety. Artificial intelligence and machine learning technologies are beginning to be applied to exploration safety. AI systems can analyze satellite imagery to identify structural hazards, predict deterioration patterns in abandoned buildings, or assess environmental risks based on historical data. Machine learning algorithms could potentially identify high-risk exploration behaviors or predict when rescue operations might be needed. Drone technology continues to advance rapidly, offering new possibilities for safe exploration and reconnaissance. High-resolution cameras, thermal imaging, gas detection sensors, and other specialized equipment mounted on drones can provide detailed information about abandoned sites without putting people at risk. Autonomous drones could potentially conduct systematic searches of complex sites, mapping hazards, and identifying points of interest. Wearable technology and biometric monitoring could provide real-time health and safety information for explorers. Devices that monitor heart rate, body temperature, blood oxygen levels, and other vital signs could provide early warning of medical emergencies. Environmental sensors worn by explorers could detect dangerous gases, radiation, or other hazards immediately. Virtual and augmented reality technologies offer the potential for safe exploration of dangerous abandoned places. High-resolution 3D scanning and photogrammetry can create detailed virtual models of abandoned sites that can be explored safely from remote locations. While this can't completely replace physical exploration, it could satisfy some of the psychological drives that motivate dangerous exploration activities. Communication technology continues to improve, with new satellite systems providing better coverage in remote areas and emergency communication devices becoming smaller, more reliable, and less expensive. Mesh networking technologies could allow exploration teams to maintain communication even in areas without traditional cell coverage. Building information modeling, BIM, and structural analysis software could help assess the safety of abandoned buildings before exploration. These technologies could analyze architectural plans, assess deterioration based on age and environmental factors, and identify the most dangerous areas of structures. Legal and regulatory frameworks are likely to continue evolving in response to new technologies and changing social attitudes toward exploration. This could include new permitting systems, liability frameworks, or safety standards specifically designed for modern exploration activities. Professional training and certification programs for exploration activities are likely to expand and become more standardized. This could include specialized training for different types of abandoned sites, psychological preparation for dangerous exploration, and emergency response skills. Research into the psychology of exploration and risk-taking behavior continues to advance, potentially leading to better screening methods, training programs, or intervention strategies for high-risk individuals. Climate change adaptation will become increasingly important as abandoned sites face new environmental challenges. This could include new assessment methods for climate-related risks, updated safety protocols for extreme weather events, or new approaches to site preservation and access management. The phenomenon of disappearances in abandoned places has had a significant impact on popular culture and reflects deeper aspects of human psychology and social development. Understanding this cultural dimension helps explain why people continue to explore dangerous abandoned places despite well-known risks. Literature and media have long been fascinated with stories of people disappearing in mysterious or abandoned places. From ancient myths about travelers who vanish in cursed locations to modern horror films set in abandoned buildings, these narratives tap into fundamental fears and fascinations. The real-life disappearances we've examined often become part of local folklore and urban legends, further increasing the mystique of particular locations. The Gothic and Romantic movements in art and literature specifically celebrated the beauty and mystery of ruins and abandoned places. This aesthetic tradition continues today in various forms, from photography exhibitions featuring abandoned locations to fashion shoots in derelict buildings. This cultural valorization of abandonment and decay may contribute to the psychological appeal of exploring such places. Video games have increasingly featured abandoned places as settings for adventure and horror experiences. Games like Silent Hill, Fallout, and countless others have trained generations of people to associate abandoned places with discovery, adventure, and valuable rewards. While these games also typically include dangers and monsters, the overall message is that abandoned places are exciting destinations worth exploring. Television shows and documentaries about urban exploration, ghost hunting, and mystery solving have brought the exploration of abandoned places into mainstream entertainment. While these programs often include safety warnings and disclaimer, they also make exploration activities seem accessible and exciting to general audiences. Social media platforms have democratized the sharing of exploration content, creating communities of thousands of people who share photographs, videos, and stories from abandoned places. These platforms provide social reinforcement for exploration activities and create networks where people can find companions for dangerous expeditions. The tourism industry has begun to capitalize on the fascination with abandoned places, creating official tours of some locations and dark tourism experiences. While professionally guided tours can be safer than unsupervised exploration, they also normalize the idea that abandoned places are appropriate destinations for recreational activities. Academic interest in abandoned places has grown significantly, with researchers from archaeology, anthropology, sociology, geography, and other fields studying these spaces. This academic attention has legitimized the exploration of abandoned places and created a body of scholarly literature that amateur explorers often reference. The environmental movement has embraced abandoned places as examples of nature reclaiming human developments, creating additional cultural value around these spaces. Photographers and artists who document the interaction between nature and abandoned human structures have created compelling arguments for the aesthetic and spiritual value of such places. Psychological and sociological research suggests that the fascination with abandoned places may reflect broader anxieties about social change, environmental degradation, and technological disruption. In an era of rapid change, abandoned places may represent both the permanence of physical structures and the impermanence of human institutions. As we conclude our examination of explorers who disappeared in abandoned places, it's important to synthesize the lessons we can learn from these tragic cases and consider how this knowledge can inform safer exploration practices in the future. The most fundamental lesson is that abandoned places present genuine and significant dangers that cannot be entirely eliminated through preparation or experience. Even the most careful and experienced explorers can encounter unexpected hazards or situations that overwhelm their safety measures. This doesn't mean exploration should be avoided entirely, but it does mean that the risks must be honestly acknowledged and carefully managed. Preparation and planning remain the most effective tools for reducing exploration risks. Every successful rescue we examined involved explorers who had made advanced plans, informed others of their activities, and carried appropriate equipment. Conversely, many disappearances involved failures in one or more of these basic safety measures. Technology can significantly improve exploration safety, but it's not a panacea. GPS devices, communication equipment, and safety gear can fail or prove inadequate in extreme situations. Explorers must maintain traditional navigation, survival, and emergency response skills alongside their technological tools. Group dynamics and peer influence play crucial roles in exploration safety. Groups can provide mutual support and safety oversight, but they can also create pressure to take risks or continue in dangerous situations. Understanding and managing group dynamics should be part of exploration, training, and preparation. The psychological factors that drive exploration, curiosity, thrill-seeking, the desire for discovery, are also factors that can impair judgment and decision-making. Successful explorers learn to recognize when their psychological state might be affecting their safety decisions and have protocols for managing these situations. Environmental and structural hazards in abandoned places are constantly changing. Information from previous explorations can become dangerously outdated, and sites that were once safe may develop serious hazards over time. Continuous assessment and reassessment of risks is essential for safe exploration. The commercialization and popularization of urban exploration has created both opportunities and challenges for safety. Increased awareness can lead to better safety practices and rescue capabilities, but it can also attract unprepared individuals to dangerous locations and create pressure for risky content creation. Legal and ethical considerations are inseparable from safety considerations. Unauthorized exploration activities can complicate rescue efforts, create liability issues, and divert resources from other priorities. Developing better frameworks for legitimate exploration while maintaining safety standards is an ongoing challenge. Professional training and education can significantly improve exploration safety, but they must be tailored to the specific risks and psychological factors involved in exploring abandoned places. Traditional outdoor education or technical training may not address all the unique challenges these environments present. Research into exploration psychology, risk assessment, and safety technology should continue to evolve. The more we understand about why people are drawn to abandoned places and what factors contribute to safe versus dangerous exploration, the better we can develop prevention and intervention strategies. Cultural attitudes toward exploration and risk-taking continue to evolve, influenced by media, technology, and social changes. Safety education and prevention efforts must adapt to these changing cultural contexts while maintaining focus on fundamental safety principles. The stories of those who have disappeared in abandoned places serve as powerful reminders of both human curiosity and human vulnerability. These individuals were not reckless thrill-seekers or unprepared amateurs. Many were experienced, intelligent people who made careful plans but encountered situations that overwhelmed their preparations. Their stories should not discourage exploration entirely, but they should inspire greater respect for the genuine dangers these activities entail. They should motivate continued research into safety technologies and techniques. Most importantly, they should remind us that the human drive to explore and discover, while fundamental to our species, must be balanced with wisdom, preparation, and respect for the forces that can claim even the most prepared adventurer. As we reach the end of our exploration of these disappearances, I want to leave you with a few final thoughts. The cases we've examined today represent more than just cautionary tales. They're windows into fundamental aspects of human nature and the complex relationship between curiosity and caution, adventure and safety, discovery and risk. The individuals who disappeared in these abandoned places were driven by some of the same impulses that have led to humanity's greatest discoveries and achievements. The desire to explore unknown spaces, to understand our past, to document our world, and to push beyond established boundaries are all fundamental aspects of human nature that have contributed immeasurably to our species' success. At the same time, these cases remind us that the physical world contains genuine dangers that cannot be entirely controlled or predicted. No amount of technology, preparation, or experience can eliminate all risks. The acknowledgement of this fundamental uncertainty is not a reason to avoid exploration, but it is a reason to approach it with appropriate humility and respect. The evolution of exploration safety that we've traced throughout this lecture, from the solo adventures of Bierce to the connected, documented expeditions of modern urban explorers, shows both how far we've come and how far we still have to go. Each generation of explorers has learned from the mistakes and tragedies of their predecessors, developing better tools, techniques, and protocols for safe exploration. But perhaps most importantly, these stories remind us of the profound human cost of our curiosity. Behind each disappearance is a person with family, friends, dreams, and contributions to make to the world. Their loss diminishes all of us, and honoring their memory requires us to continue learning from their experiences. For those of you who may be inspired to explore abandoned places yourselves, and I suspect this lecture may have that effect on some of you, I urge you to approach such activities with the seriousness they deserve. Seek proper training, use appropriate safety measures, explore with competent companions, and always remember that no discovery or adventure is worth sacrificing your safety or that of others. For those interested in the academic study of these phenomena, there remain many important research questions about exploration psychology, risk assessment, safety technology, and the cultural factors that influence exploration behavior. The field needs continued research and fresh perspectives to reduce the toll of exploration accidents. Finally, I want you to consider the broader implications of what we've discussed today. The balance between curiosity and caution, between pushing boundaries and respecting limits, between individual freedom and collective responsibility. These are not just issues for explorers of abandoned places. They're fundamental questions that affect how we approach everything from scientific research to social policy to personal decision-making. The explorers who disappeared in abandoned places were not so different from any of us. They were curious, brave, and perhaps a little more willing than most to venture into the unknown. Their stories serve as both inspiration and warning, reminding us of the wonderful and terrible power of human curiosity. Thank you for your attention tonight. I hope our exploration of these disappearances has given you new perspectives on human nature, risk and safety, and the complex relationship between our drive to explore and our need to survive. Class is dismissed for the night, and please, whatever abandoned places you may encounter in your own lives, explore them safely. And in case you've enjoyed our evening talk so much and still might be awake, here is another educational video for you.